seconds. Dr. Charles Finch,
Yes,
man,
I saw all the other luminaries that you had before, and they are dressed for this situation. I'm not. I'm dressed real casual. I just went.
no.
I went out on a errand, and I haven't dressed appropriately there, Clemson.
Well, look, you look all right to me.
Okay, well, you're the only one I have to please. You and your audience.
Let me give a little bit of your background. Dr. Finch was head of Morehouse College of Medicine, if I remember correctly.
No. The Department of International Health at the Morehouse School of Medicine.
Okay, and you are a medical doctor though,
Yes, I am.
and have been a medical doctor for like
Since 1976.
1976.
You know that makes me old. That makes me older than most of your audience, I'm sure.
It's all right. Dr. Finch has taken hundreds of us to Egypt. Well, I went mostly with Dr. Ben, but Dr. Finch has also traveled up and down the Nile so many times. And he has also spent time in Ghana and in many countries in Africa. He did a piece for us on the Dogon, which I hope that we'll get a chance to deal with at a later date. Today, we want to look at Cepheus. Now, Cepheus is the Ethiopian star. And I've always interpreted that as the rise of the black man because this is the time of Cepheus, when Cepheus was set. I was telling people back in 1995, when we had the Million Man March, at the end of the news report on the Million Man March, Tom Brokaw said, as he summarized his statements, he said, "Oh, by the way, a new star was seen in the heavens tonight. I wonder if it has anything to do with the Million Man March." And when I heard that, I jumped on the phone and called Dr. Charles Finch down at Morehouse College. I call you.
No, School of Medicine.
Yeah, School of Medicine. And you said, yes, that's Kiefer. So tell us about this.
Okay. You can't just limit it to one star because Cepheus is, in a sense, I call him the cosmic Ethiopian king. His wife is Cassiopeia, and his daughter is Andromeda. And he is famous in Greek mythology because Perseus came through his kingdom. This is Greek mythology now. Killed a dragon or a monster that was ravaging his kingdom, and as a result was able to marry Andromeda. Now, Cepheus, as I say, was Ethiopian through and through, as was his wife and his daughter. So, if Perseus is one of the ancestors of the Greeks, so is Andromeda, the African queen, Ethiopian queen, if you will, or Ethiopian princess, but we can call her the queen. All right. Now, the other thing I want to say about Ethiopia, and then we'll kind of come back to Cepheus. Ethiopia wasn't just Abyssinia, which we think of as now, on the northeastern slope of Africa. Ethiopia in ancient times encompassed not only what we think of as the northern Sudan, but also what we think of as Arabia and Palestine. And that's just Ethiopia. That's Western Ethiopia. Then there is an Eastern Ethiopia. Eastern Ethiopia is what is now called India. And you see, we look at Indians, the Hindu, and we don't see the black origins of India. You have to go down south. And I haven't been to India, but I have seen pictures of those Tamils or Dravidians. They are the blackest people on the planet.
Wow.
Blacker than Africans. I couldn't believe it. But you never see them. I mean, you never see them written about, talked about, photographed. You always think of India as being the northern Indians. You don't think of India, and let me see, how many Tamil are there? Like 200 million. India itself has a total of maybe 1 billion. 200 million of them are black as night. I don't know how else to describe it. They live in the southern third of the Indian subcontinent. And they're the first ones there. They were shall we call them the Aboriginal Indians or Hindus. Now, so Ethiopia in some sense stretched all the way to the east. All right. Now, we think of Cepheus as being the king, the king, and him and his family. Well, I'm thinking of let me slow down. My mouth is getting ahead of me. We almost ought to think of them as a family, Cepheus and Cassiopeia and Andromeda. But remember, Cepheus was venerated, and the whole family was venerated as far north as Palestine, even farther north than that. All right. And the Greeks in particular had a tremendous, veneration, admiration for Cepheus, and they discussed him in their so-called mythology, in their so-called history. So, like I said, he was a very, I don't know how to put it. Yeah, he was a very powerful king, and he had that whole family had a tremendous influence on the ancient Greeks, because you got to understand about the ancient Greeks. Now, you're historians and writers of mythology, and said, I'm not going to tell you this, but the Greeks themselves revered to the point of worship both the Egyptians and the Ethiopians, and said so. They didn't have those kind of issues that we have now about that sort of thing, do they? No. Can you imagine there's maybe, fewer than a half a dozen white scholars, maybe 3 or 4, who would even admit what I just told you. Gerald Massey being one, but he lived 150 years ago. Okay, and as far as he's concerned, when he was talking about the Egyptians, the Egyptians, he was talking about black people, not mixed people, black people. Racial mixture didn't start in Egypt until about 600 BC. Now you got to understand one thing about ancient Egypt. The dynastic period begins 4,200 BC. That's not when Egypt started, by the way. This has been found out in recent years. Egypt goes all the way back about 10 to 12,000 years. But the unification of the upper and lower Egypt, that happened 6,000 years ago. All right? And so anyway, Cepheus, as I say, the cosmic Ethiopian king. Now you got to understand one thing that we have lost. The ancients, they, how would you put it? They had a tremendous reverence for the heavens and the heavenly movements and the heavenly bodies. They made their calendars, they ordered their lives, and they paid tremendous deference to the heavenly bodies and the gods that are represented by those heavenly bodies. So, and they all came from Ethiopia. We don't know how reverential the Greeks were to the, well, Egyptians, of course, but as much the Ethiopians. Some, maybe even more, a little bit. All right? Because people don't really know, we talk about Ethiopia and we think we know what we're talking about. Like I said, it's the country on the Horn of Africa. And we don't know just how powerful and influential Ethiopia was in antiquity. Ethiopia is a word that in Greek means sunburnt, the land of the sunburnt people. Oh gosh, they had another name. Now they later became known as Abyssinia, but Cush. How could I forget? Cush. Cush is actually mentioned in the Bible, and Cush was in southern Egypt, south of Egypt. Okay, but parts of Cush actually extended into what we today think as the southern border of Egypt. And there were at least 3, invasions. I guess they were invasions from Cush into Ethiopia, into Egypt. Why? To settle things down in Egypt, to order it during periods of upheaval and trouble and discord. And so in Egypt, in each case, when Egypt was, as it were, saved and set to right, that came from the south. This is the reason why the Egyptians, shall we say, revered the south. The south was his name for the Egyptian name for south was the first same as Kenti, by the way, Khenti. It was also this exact same as their name for first, up, chief, beginnings. So the south was for them the beginnings, the origins, and yes, the heavens, or I should say, the heavenly people. And because they sent known in historical times, they were known to have sent 4 expeditions down to what is now Tanzania. That's where they just followed the river southward to its origins or sources in what is today Tanzania. And during the time of Ramesses the second or third, I think, they brought back an emissary from those lands. And the Pharaoh, when he found out this was happening, he sent a fast boat and says, "I want you to protect that emissary with your lives. Don't let anything happen to him. Don't let him fall into the river." You say, well, so what? That emissary was a so-called pygmy. Egyptians didn't call them pygmies. Deng. They called them a deng, D-E-N-G. Why? Well, among others, there's a lot of reasons. One, first of all, the Egyptians knew where they came from. They didn't have any issues about that. They didn't have any. There was no ambiguity in their minds about that. They knew they came from the source of the Nile. They knew they came from way down south. And so the Egyptians would say up south and down north. Yeah. And that was their sacred land. What is today now Tanzania? We don't, of course, nowadays, you don't see any histories, and haven't for 500-600 years, referring to the countries at the source of the Nile, Tanzania, Kenya, Uganda. You don't see any reference to them as ancient Egypt's sacred lands. And like I said, the so-called pygmy, Deng. And you know why? Because the god Ptah, maybe if not one of the oldest, maybe 2 oldest male deities in Egypt. Not deities, the oldest deities in Egypt were female goddesses. But the oldest male deities in Egypt were Ptah and Set. And Ptah was always represented as a so-called pygmy, a deng, a dwarf. And so when they got a chance to bring this emissary from the land of the Deng, i.e. the land, I have to use the word pygmies because people won't know what I'm talking about otherwise. It's not the proper term for these people, but we are kind of constrained by people's knowledge of what these people's names were. So we just have to keep using it. But the ancient Egyptians basically revered these people. Now, what Egyptian historian is going to tell you that? I told you there is a letter sent from Ramesses. I forget, it was either Ramesses II or Ramesses III. I forget which, because they had sent at least 4 expeditions. Because that's a 4,000-mile trip, by the way.
Wow.
That was no trivial matter. That was a 4,000-mile trip.
Wow.
And they somehow they kept in touch with them. I don't know how they did that, but when they found out they were bringing a Deng / pygmy back, the Pharaoh said, look, sent them a fast boat and says, you better make sure that representative of the Deng gets here safe and unharmed. He better not fall into the river.
Dr. Finch.
Yes.
While we are on Ethiopia, Herodotus wrote that, at least he said, that Ethiopia was so just and fair that the gods had Cepheus. How did they put that? He said that Ethiopia was so just and fair that the gods came to visit them.
Yes, that's right. In other words, Herodotus was the first Greek really to write anything, shall we say, definitive about the ancient Egyptians. And when you read his histories and you read the Egyptian part, you could tell that he was in awe of the Egyptians, basically. All right. Now, and he recorded their traditions, their histories, and yes, there was a time, according to the ancient Egyptians and Ethiopians, when the gods, as we call them today, the ancient Egyptians call them neters, used to walk among human beings. Yep.
Okay.
There came a time when they had fallen into a period of extended corruption where the gods left them. But there was we don't even know how far back it was. There was a time when the gods walked among human beings. Were the ones that we today call Osiris and Isis and Set and Horus and Ra and Thoth and Jehudi and Mut and Nut and Hathor, on and on and on. They weren't just gods up there in the air, up in heaven. They walked on earth. They went to heaven because human beings, lost, control of themselves. They got themselves, what's the word? They fell into corruption. So the gods couldn't stay with. The gods had 2 choices: either wipe out the human race or leave. They chose to leave.
Well, let me ask you this, because if we look at the principles that the ancient Africans laid out, everything is really has an opposite. You can't have hot without cold. You can't have up without down, and you can't have evil without justice or without right. And according to the calendars, both the 365-year calendar, which is broken up into seasons, and the 26,000-year calendar, which was in the temple of Dendera, it's about seasons. It's about a lot more than seasons, but everything has a season. And so even wrong or evil has a season. And you see that displayed in the story of Osiris and his brother Seth, who was the evil one who killed him and cut him into 14 pieces. And
let me interrupt.
Yes.
To say this. Set did not start out evil.
Okay.
Quite
all
the
right,
contrary.
I got it.
He was not. He didn't start out in that way in the Egyptian mind. Now, some things happened where Osiris, who was his brother, rose to the pinnacle of Egyptian worship and veneration, and that's when Set became the enemy.
Okay.
But keep talking though. You know.
Yeah.
Set he didn't start out being the enemy though.
So so when he did, and I'm saying everything has its own season, and I was saying that evil has a season too. I mean, if you look at the Bible, which takes much of its sacred writings, they are fragments of ancient Egyptian understanding and writings and what they left us. And it also talks about there's a season to plant and there's a season to pluck up that which was planted. There's a season to be joyful, there's a season to be sad, but it talks about seasons. And so I wanted to connect that in terms of seasons with Cephas, because if you can explain to us that zodiac and that 26,000 years, it's also broke up into what we might call seasons. And so,
but there are two zodiacs, both of them of the same length of time. Both of them caused by the same rotation of the Earth's axis around vertical north. One of the Cepheus is in the zodiac around the North Pole.
okay.
Our zodiac, which we know conventionally, is what rotates around the equator.
Okay.
So at any given time, there are two supreme or symbolic powers that are operating or working in the cosmos and impact human beings. Like for now, let me see who's now one right now. Oh sugar! Trying to think who's in the. I'm blocking because right now, Cepheus. Okay, let me slow down. We're right now in the age of Pisces, and have been for about 2,150 years. Because these ages all last about 2,160 years. We will move out of the age of Pisces. Let's see, where are we? 20, and we will move out of the age of Pisces into the age of Aquarius in 2039. This is the dawning of the age of Aquarius. The age of Aquarius. You remember that song?
Yes, absolutely.
From the musical Hair. That's what that's referring to. But as I say, there's always two zodiacs, and there's one up in the North Pole. 10 years later, Cepheus. Okay, Cepheus is one of the seven constellations that revolve around the North Pole. Right. His wife and daughter aren't circumpolar. They're there, but they don't revolve. They revolve with him, but he's the one that actually revolves around the North Pole. And this is why we say his age is coming in 2060. No, is that right? What did I say? 2039, maybe 2050.
2050.
And that is the age of the cosmic Ethiopian king that will last for 3,700 years.
Wow. Now, two things. One, they refer to the Temple Dendera, where the zodiac was found that the French took out and took to France. They refer that to say that it is a Greek temple, that the Greeks built that. But I was asking you, who built that temple, and wasn't it built on a temple before? So it's much older.
Absolutely. And the Temple of Dendera was dedicated to Hathor, or head hair.
Okay.
Means a mansion of Horus. And usually, if you go to Egypt, as you know, I've been a dozen times. Anthony Karakamoon Browder, that's what I call him, has been 50 times. You always make a stop at Dendera. because you pay honor and homage to Hathor Hedher, who is the mansion of Horus. And I was saying something. Remind me, what was I saying, Clemson?
Well, I had asked you who built those temples.
Oh yeah.
The Greeks didn't build them.
Yeah. The Greeks, what the Greeks did, first of all, and they used call it Egyptian architects and workers. They just superimposed certain temples on ancient foundations, and using the ancient, what is it when you have, when you got something that you follow when you build.
Yeah, the
blueprint.
architectural.
A blueprint. I guess I would call it a blueprint.
Yeah.
So yes, all of the temples that are ascribed to the Greeks are Egyptian temples that have been revived by the Greeks. Why? Because Dendra was by the time of the Greek rule of Egypt was already somewhere between 4,000 and 6,000 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So the Temple of Dendra, they're just revitalizing it and rebuilding it.
And it wasn't the Greeks that rebuilt it; it was the Egyptian engineers and architects.
Yes, under the direction, because the Greeks ruled. Mm-hmm. They ruled by that time. The last 300 years of Egyptian history was ruled under Greek domination. But, and this is Cleopatra is the most famous of the Greek pharaohs, if you want to call them. Her father was Ptolemaic or Greek. Her mother was Egyptian.
Mm-hmm.
And Cleopatra always considered herself an Egyptian pharaoh. Always.
Mm.
She didn't think of herself as being a Greek ruler. She considered herself to be in the same line of the pharaohs. And through her mother, she had some claim to that. But she wasn't, how we go and watch Elizabeth Taylor in the movie Cleopatra, and we get the idea that this was a Greek queen. No. There's so many, shall we say, what is the word? I mean, the way in which history has been distorted and, lied about. You see, so Cleopatra herself, even though her father was Ptolemaic and Greek, and though she inherited the rulership of Egypt through her father, because by that time the Macedonian Greeks were the ruler of Egypt. This is just before the Romans took over, because the Romans took over after Cleopatra. But her father was Macedonian Greek, but her mother was Egyptian, and Cleopatra always thought of herself as an Egyptian first. And she thought of herself as a continuation of the ancient line of pharaohs.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me get back to Cepheus. Now, how does that affect us? And why should, as African Americans, we know this history? And why was it so important for Tom Brokaw to point out that the star Cepheus had been seen in the heavens?
Let's take the last part of what you're saying first, because white people know. They know what the deal is. They're not going to let you know that they know, but they know. Okay? That's number one. Now, not only Cepheus, but the the great mother of the waters, who we call, the great mother of the water. Slow down. We call her Aquarius, but Aquarius was originally female, and the age of Aquarius comes in, what did I say, 2039, something like that.
Yes.
But it's actually the age of the great mother of the waters, starting then for 2,160 years. The various kinds of the great mother of the waters are Mamiwata, Yemanya Oshun, all of the West African goddesses of the water are Aquarius, or Aquarius is them. Hathor, going back that far, Isis even. So when you talk about the coming of the great mother of the waters, which is that's what Aquarius, go and look Aquarius up. They say you'll see pictures of him pouring water out, and that's why he's called the water man. He wasn't originally the water man. He was originally the great mother of the waters. It was Europeans who switched that all around. So now, the age of Aquarius, let me just finish this, is the coming of the age of the great mother of the waters. And her period, her time will last for 2,160 years. And like I said, if you know anything about Yemanya, Oshun, who else was I saying? Who's the Akan? I forget who the name of the Akan goddess. Oh yeah, in Senegal, she was Mami Wata, and then Kumbalamba in Senegal, and we could go on, and we find the same great mother of the waters, different names in West Africa, because you got to realize all your major West African groups, without exception, can trace their origins, remote origins, back to the Nile Valley.
Now,
without exception.
I find that critically important because the Egyptians did not leave Africa and go into Europe. They left Africa and went south. They went to the west. Places like Ghana has a lot of Egyptian names and so forth. But had they left Egypt, if they were Europeans, they would have left Egypt and went back to Europe.
They were.
But Europe stayed.
To think that the Egyptians had anything to do with Europe it just makes me laugh. It's laughable.
Said it again.
It's laughable. It just makes me laugh.
To think
it's just like I said. What can I say? It's just laughable. There was nothing European. Now, the first Africans to go into Europe on a large scale were the Moors under Tariq, with the invasion of the Moorish invasion of Spain. You know, the Moors, the word Moor comes from the Latin word moros. You know what that word means? Black.
Ah, yes, blackamoor.
Yeah, that's right, blackamoor. So these were black people who conquered Spain and gave Spain her civilization, the Moorish civilization.
Yes.
Sure did. And you can see remnants of the Moors in Spain today.
Correct. So now, if the Moors were the first Africans, they didn't have to be the first Africans into Europe, but they impacted Europe with helping to set up their university system.
Yes. Absolutely.
Their learning systems. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, I mean, you've just said it. They set up they created an entire civilization, the Moorish civilization. Set up universities, as you said. They had a tremendous reverence for learning. They created libraries and universities and schools, and they were really very, what do you want to say, at a very high level of civilization. And you know what the Europeans did? They came down to Spain to learn anything. Mm-hmm. They came down to the Moors in order to be taught.
Mm-hmm.
They had to. There was nothing like that going on in Europe. And they would take what they got. They found that they learned from the Moors, and they would take it back up to France and Germany, even into England. And like I said, don't expect this information to come from anybody, any white scholar. They're not going to tell you this.
Right. And they're not going to talk about the period of Cepheus, the rise of the Ethiopian king, because they see the rise of the Ethiopian king as the rise of the black man and the overthrow of European dominance in the world. Um, can you speak to that? You know, that's what all this is about right
Yeah,
now,
but
even under Trump.
yeah, this, that is, shall we say, that's just opening up talking about a can of worms. That's what that's doing. But you see, there's one thing, I started systematically studying in 1972. And you realize after all that studying and reading and traveling to Africa, traveled to Africa, well, I think 75 times, 12 times to Egypt. As I say, Browder has been there 52 times. That there is a, what do you want to call it? There is a shift that is in play. It may be hard to see, hard to ascertain. Black people look around them and say, well, nothing has changed. We're still in the same situation we've been since 1619. Yes and no. Change like that is often subterranean, subtle, unable to perceive. And maybe the change, the alteration is not so much in material circumstances, it's in mental and mental, spiritual circumstances to prepare for another time, another age. Because another age, in fact, 2 ages are almost upon us. And that means there's going to be vast changes, and there's nothing anybody can do about it.
That is correct.
And here my only issue, if you want to call it that, I says, okay, black people, are you / we, are you going to be ready for this new dispensation, this new age? Because it's, in a sense, it's our opportunity. And I'm not saying we go out and start conquering and shooting people up and getting an army and overrunning everything. No, that's already been done. For the last 4,000 years, there have been conquerors and military personnel who have gone here and there and all over the world to create empires. Been there, done that. And you ask yourself, is the world better for it? Well, people might say, well, look, we've got more material goods than we've ever had before. So what? So what? There's a lot of there's too many things that are being destroyed in the process of creating this material paradise. And I don't know, I kind of got off of what I was trying to say. My point is that you say, well, what does that mean for black people? Black people need to make that decision because, yes, it's going to be, there's something, let's say, instead of calling an opportunity, let's say there's going to be an opening, an opening. And like I said, it's not mean that you're supposed to gather an army and ride through that opening and conquer here and conquer there and get your revenge on the white man and all that. No, it's not going to be like that. No, but there is going to be an opening, and you have to know how to, take advantage of the opening as it comes. And that's not going to be, and just in America. And let's just talk about America. We could talk about the whole world. But let's just talk about America, black people in America. 55 million black people in America. That doesn't mean that all that what I'm saying is going to have any impact, known impact on all 55 million black people, they will either ignore it or deny it or be unaware that it's happening. You're only talking about you're talking about a really small number of black people who can, shall we say, receive receive these elements that are coming to us already, and start thinking about what to do about it. So you're not talking about, 90. I don't know. I speculate. I said, how many black people can actually be affected by these vast changes? Seriously. And I've in my own mind, I've said as few as 5% or as many as 25%. And so I go back and forth with that without having any real sense of what the truth of that is. But I speculate about it every day. And yes, will there be violence? Yep. How can there not be? Now the question is, what is the outcome of that violence? Even if we're not perpetrating the violence ourselves, or you got to be ready for some I don't know what else to say. You got to be ready. It ain't gonna be pretty. And the thing is, you say, can we even survive it?
Wow. Yes.
The question is, I think let's put it this way. I think the spiritual powers of Africa are watching over us and are trying to guide us, trying to show us the way to go so that we can be ready for this upheaval. And question is, how many of us are going to listen and take heed and act accordingly? If only just to protect our own. They will protect us,
Yes, that is our ancestral spirits.
But it's not just enough that they will protect us. We've got to be in a position to be protected, if you understand what I mean.
Yes.
And accept what it means for us. And
now,
I'm not convinced that most black people are going to know or are going to accept that. I think there will be a critical mass. That's do you know who Elise Galati is?
No,
she's a I don't even know if she's still with us. She was a psychiatrist at Howard University. Absolutely first-class, brilliant woman. I would listen to her in awe. Elise Galati. Some people who at Howard University Medical School would know exactly what I'm talking about. And she is the one who I adopted this idea of a critical mass of black people to do anything. That comes from the physics and even chemistry, that you have to have a physical mass of certain kinds of elements in order for certain kind of chemical and physical processes to take place. She was the first one I ever heard use that. I had heard the term, but she's the first one I ever heard use the term in that way, and I have never forgotten it.
Well, Dr. Finch, one of the reasons I used to love talking to you so much was that you, in looking at the ancient African cosmology, or the way that they perceive the world, they perceive the world themselves as one with the universe. Much like we look at spring and the sap, which are the trees, which had, because of winter, were in a state of deadness. All the leaves had gone, everything. There was no flowering of the bushes and the plants and everything. It just looks dead. But that was because the sun, or the rays of the sun, was hitting the earth at a certain angle, and the sap, which has the life of the tree, would leave the limbs and the branches and go down into the roots. So the tree looked dead, but the tree was really quite alive. And when the cycle, or when spring came, uh, that sap, because the sun would draw that life back up into the branches and to the leaves, and it would get, the branches would get limber again and grow leaves and flowers and everything within the cycle. Now, man has no control over that. And this period of time in which the energy of Cephus is coming into the earth, the same thing I perceive is happening to us as a people if we are conscious and we are living as the ancestors had said that we should live, ma'at. And so I think that we're one with nature, and that critical mass, if we could perceive who we are and what we are in terms of nature, we can have an impact even on nature, since we are nature. And if we live that Ma'atian lifestyle, we will be guided and strengthened and used to help save the planet and save humanity. So that critical mass is the way I interpret what you are saying that we need to reach. And if it's 5 to 25% of us, we can impact and change the world if we only know who we are. And I would like if you would talk on that a minute.
I don't know. You said a lot right there, Clemson. I mean, uh, the thing is, however many people of African descent that you can, shall we say, impact with these kind of ideas, this sensibility, this sense of being impacted by the, our ancestral spirits, the cosmic spirits, the universal spirits, the spirits of life. Um, what what you're trying to eventually get to, however many, whatever percentage of us can do that, you're trying to get to a sense of organic unity.
Ah, yes.
Now we've been talking about that since the 60s. I came of age in the 60s. The age of not only civil rights but black power, militants, Malcolm, uh, the the Panthers, Stokely, H. Rap, Martin Luther King before them. You know, it was a very intense time, and it was a time of an awakening. Now, the question is, and we thought that the revolution not only was not going to be televised, but it was going to happen immediately. No, that's the other thing I want to say. You got to be willing. We got to be willing to wait, not wait indefinitely, but wait until the right time, the optimum time. It'll come, but you got to be ready to wait for it,
Mm-hmm.
and you can't get impatient. I don't expect to see anything that I'm talking about to happen in my lifetime. I've long ago accepted that. So the only thing that I feel like I and others can do, including you, Clemson, is plant seeds. Different ways of planting seeds. But you got to plant seeds and allow them to be cultivated, because it's a cultivation of the seeds are a cultivation of consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
But the consciousness has to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, the discipline. Got to have the discipline.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, I mean, really, that discipline is critical.
Mm-hmm.
And so we seem to lack that. I mean, not all of us, but it's not as it needs to be ingrained into anything we attempt to do collectively.
Ah, yes.
And let me just say, so you can't listen to what I'm saying or what you're saying, or look around and say, well, oh, okay, so this is going to happen in the next things that you're talking about, next 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years. You got to be ready. You got to be ready to put the time in. That is to wait. You got to know how to wait. Wait proactively.
Mm-hmm.
You got to know how to wait proactively.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, as part of the waiting, be ready for your time when your time comes.
Mm-hmm.
We're not ready. We're not ready now. Come on, let's be real about it. I mean, I'm not. We're just not, and we should recognize that and realize that. It doesn't mean we're just supposed to give up or just throw our hands up and say, "Oh well, this is never going to happen because black people ain't ready." No, 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 no. That's a ridiculous attitude to take.
Mm-hmm.
You wait until you make yourself ready and wait to the time, because the time will come, whether we want it to or not, whether anybody wants it to or not. Time waits for no one, as the song used to say. And that's the other thing I want to come back to. There are other forces at work that impact us on a daily basis that are spiritual, cosmic, universal, divine. We may not be able to feel them or touch them or define them, but they're at work all right.
Mm-hmm. 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 Now, we've been joined by Mama Linus Moshe. Do you have a question that you would like to ask? I think her mic is muted.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I hear you. Go ahead.
Yes. First and foremost, I give thanks to the cosmic universe for ordaining the mastermind Charles S. Finch to this platform. Considering ever since I met you, Baba Brown, the things that I've been revealing to you, you already
Yes.
know he's confirming. And this time, when you're telling people to learn how to wait, it's more like to me what the ancestors and the cosmic mother is revealing to me. We are not to wait like being stagnant. We are supposed to be waiting like if you're in a process of waiting on a person, waiting on an event. That means you're constantly moving in preparation based on the things that are being revealed to you from the spiritual realm as well as being confirmed in the natural realm. Some of us have been sent and mandated, like yourself, based on the information that you're sharing with the audience, has been given this information to educate others, like planting the seed, as you say, and then others will water. But what the hearer must understand to understand is that they have the ability to be beneficial and fruitful from that tree that's going to bear fruit based on their own desire to seek out and confirm and to know themselves based on the gift that was put in them to they can contribute, because we all are sent here with a special gift to contribute to our reparations, restoration, and redemption, not from a government perspective of the current system, but what is the renewing and taking back our throne preparation. So with everything that you were saying, my question now is, what do you perceive as what needs to be done in the process of waiting in movement in preparation? What our people should focus on in preparation for the coming of our return to our thrones? With that, I'm complete.
I take that question is directed at me.
Yes.
You can see in the background behind me are my shelves full of books. There's no substitute for reading and studying, learning, and I do mean that through books. That's the thing about the ancients; they used to have a tremendous reverence for learning, and even till relatively recently in Africa, that was always true. So there's no substitute for studying and reading for the rest of your life. That's basically what I've had to do. That expands you not just in terms of what we're discussing here. It expands you into a wider realm of experience and understanding. That's number one. The other thing is what I've already mentioned, cultivate what I would can only call, for lack of a better term, a mental discipline. And you say, well, what is that mental discipline? That mental discipline is to not fall into certain traps that are out there. Okay? There are a lot of things, for example, that are going to try to pull you in. A lot of things are going to try to appeal, to your sensations, to your desires, to your wants. And you've just got to have the discipline to be able to separate what they call the wheat from the chaff, the reality from the unreality. So there is a discipline that is absolutely required, personal discipline, by the way, and not just mental, but also of your body. You got to one has to take care of one's body, exercise, eat properly, sleep, get a requisite amount of sleep. So take care of your body as well as your mind. So, and that's part of the getting ready. And also listen to people who have something to teach you, and you'll know who they are. You're going to hear, there are a lot of people you can be listening to. There's a lot of people out there going to be talking to you. But you need to be able to have the discernment to be able to listen to the people whose ideas and words can do you the most good. And some of those have come and gone. Everybody from Marcus Garvey, like I said, Marcus, Malcolm, and Martin, and others since then. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so there's, one would like to think one has a step-by-step process that okay, I take the step and then I go to that step and then the next step and the next step. Yes, I can see shall we say, the attraction of that. I want that myself. But we're not there. We can't have all of that right now. But still, there has to be a discipline, individual discipline, and then as part of a collective discipline. And I'm not talking about collective discipline of all 55 million Black people in America. Even those that what did I call it? That critical mass. That critical mass needs to organize and unify around a collective discipline. Now, I don't know if I was very coherent saying all those things, but those are the reactions I get from the question that was asked. That's what sort of comes up, and also I think we're coming to our end of our time, Clemson. So I don't know.
Well, I do have one more question. in reference to studying and reading books, in my research and in the what the spirit guides me to understand is when you walk as you learn and you learn as you walk, there's an interaction that must be made with nature.
Oh boy,
So if a
yes,
person was to read a
yes.
book, they still have to be able to get up and actually walk and practice or live according to what it is that they're reading. And in such a time as this, where we have to look to the land for everything that it is going to need in the process of this cosmic rites of passage, it's very important that the people utilize their waiting period to actually get back in communication with the spirits of nature. Do you not
Yes,
agree?
yes, yes, yes. That's all I can say to that. I wish I had said it. Absolutely,
All right, I'm
absolutely.
complete. Thank you.
Dr. Finch, I want to thank you for joining us today.
My
We had a
pleasure.
lot of questions and comments that I didn't get to, but I want to ask you if you'll come back with us another time and talk about the Dogon because I think understanding what the Dogon brings to us
Mm.
from its African source and understanding is either an extension of the Egyptians or the same people. I don't know, but
Okay,
I
well,
want to.
let me just say this because boy, you have just opened up an area of mine. You got to understand that the Dogon left the Nile Valley. Let me think now, about 300 to 400 A.D. And then, because then about 600 to 700 A.D. With the invasion of Islam into what is Mali. That's where they were. They were in Western Mali. They sent, and they didn't want to change their way of thinking, their way of living, their way of believing. They they did not want to relinquish that. So they actually sent 4 representatives eastward to find a place for them to move to. And they did at the Bandiagara Cliffs. Why the Bandiagara Cliffs in Mali, eastern Mali? Because it was so inhospitable that nobody would want to go there. Well, would want to go there to look for them. Nobody wanted to go all the way out there looking for them there. And so they were left alone and still are left alone. That's why they have maintained the integrity of their culture and way of life. I have actually been to Dogon country
Hmm.
um, once. Boy, that's a whole, as you say, that's a whole other subject. But they were determined to maintain the integrity of their entire system, spiritual, mental, cultural, anything else you want to put in there. And so they
Hmm.
are fascinating people, absolutely fascinating. And yes, they they can trace their origins all the way back to the Nile Valley.
Hmm. Thank you. Does that mean you're gonna come back and talk to us about
Well,
this?
I mean, Clemson, what do you think? I could turn you down once you ask?
I love it. All right, we'll set up the date, and I'm gonna ask everybody if they would go and hit the button, the like button, and if they would, what's that called? Subscribe to Tap Video Transatlantic Productions, and we will keep you informed. Because I can't wait for Dr. Finch to come back and talk about the Dogon. Again, I want to thank everybody for being with us. I want to thank Dr. Charles Finch and wish you all well. Good day.